As little children growing up in the Conejos neighborhood, we were among the first people who could read. Our parents generally could not read and write. So as children, we learned English at school, and those signs in downtown Colorado Springs were always in English. Those people didn't put them in Spanish. And so as children, we knew what those signs said. No Mexicans or dogs allowed. So it was mostly through the children, through us as kids. We're the ones that saw the signs, and we would tell our parents, oh, we can't go in there. And then like my mother said, oh, okay, let's just go somewhere else, until you find some place that maybe you could get in, which was few and far between, because most of the stores and the cafes would not let you in, period. That was it. This situation of how we got in Colorado Springs started in the 1940s. During World War II, the word had been spread over there to northern New Mexico that labor was needed to help build the military base in Colorado Springs, which back then was called Camp Carson. It's nowadays called Fort Carson. So my grandfather, Jose, and one of my great uncles, Iturbide, they came ahead. They were like scouts to kind of check out the situation in Colorado Springs. And when they came back to northern New Mexico, they spread the word to all the people. Oh, they have schools there, they've got running water. It's just gonna be like this land of milk and honey for everybody. The Conejos neighborhood was very crowded in the 40s and the 50s. There were a few African Americans sprinkled in the neighborhood, but it was like 99% Mexican Americans. People would sit out on the porches and play the guitarras and sing. The children, we would go play in the alleys and in the dirt roads. There was always just this vitality there in the neighborhood. I remember one day, my sister, who's a year older than I am, she was coming home from school with one of her classmates that she always played with at school. And her classmate told her, she says, I can't walk home or be playing with you anymore at school. And my sister said, why? And she said, because my parents said that you live in the bad part of town. And the one name that they used back then was called Spick. Hey, Spick. That term, because we heard it so early as a child. Spick, you go downtown Colorado Springs, you'd hear that word Spick, you're like, oh my God, we better get back to the Conejos neighborhood before we get beaten up or something. Because of the hatred that was going on in Colorado Springs at the time, directed toward the Mexican part of town where we lived, the people within the neighborhood always said, oh no, you must be mistaken. We're not Mexican. We're Spanish. We're Italian. We're Greeks. Everything but the M word. Among the many places in Colorado Springs that we were not allowed to go and welcome was the little park there, and it was called Monument Valley Park. Mexicans were not allowed to go in that park. So by the time of the mid-1960s, when people began to stand up against this type of segregation that we had lived through in the 40s and 50s, by that point we were allowed. Anybody could go in that park. And that was the first time I'd ever been there, because we'd always been told, you're taking your chances if you go up there. And so I had a cachucha, a little hat that I used to like to wear in those days. And it was my first time to really go into Monument Valley Park. And I was there by myself that day, and I kept thinking, even though this is beautiful and this is peaceful, how could this have been part of a history in this city at one time that said, you people cannot come here. The Conejos neighborhood continued up until around the mid-1960s, at which time there was a federal program called the Urban Renewal Program. The Colorado Springs city government had gotten some kind of contract or whatever funding, from the federal government to get rid of the Conejos neighborhood. Around the mid-1960s, the word was going out that you people have to get out of here. But that's when the Conejos neighborhood started to break apart. A little bit at a time, you'd hear, oh, the Ornelas are gone, the Romeros are gone, the Fernandez are gone, the Martínez are gone, everybody's gone, being dispersed. Because each time I'd go back, it was like, God, another block is gone. And where's this family? And that, oh, se fue pa Denver, se fue pa Nuevo Mexico, The Malena family owned La Tiendita there in the Conejos neighborhood, the little store that was kind of like the center, the hub of the whole area. So the Malena family, they wouldn't sell. They wouldn't do it. And this was being driven a lot by one of the sons in the family, Rodolfo, and he was carrying the torch, the spirit of his father and all the other relatives in the Malena family. We are not leaving. We're going to stay here. Because the city at that point, around the mid-90s, they were saying, you know what, we're going to put a park down there, a big park, and we're going to call it Confluence Park. And we're going to have a place where people can go and listen to the symphony, and there's going to be art galleries and, dancing bears and all kinds of, like a carnival atmosphere, or artistic atmosphere. In other words, this is where a lot of the wealthy people can come and just hang out. So Rodolfo Malena is saying, hey, time out. Instead of just wiping out this history that happened there from the 40s through the mid-60s, you need to honor that. You need to have some type of memorial. I don't know if they ever did that. I know that they did eventually change the name from Confluence Park to America the Beautiful Park. My point was that they should call it America at its Worst Moment Park, because of all that had gone on there.